Hey y'all, today's Coffee with Kim might be a little bit long, but stick with me because I'm a statistical person, and if I hear a statistic on something that I'm passionate about, I want to dig into it and see where that statistic comes from, but I also want your input as well. So, did you know that nearly 50% of Americans are on track to earn income as a 1099 independent by the year 2026? And did you also know that it is changing everything? So let's chat. So, exactly where did this statistic come from? Well, Forbes says that the American workplace is now experiencing a profound shift in saying that half of American workers are actively considering changing industries. Now, that doesn't mean that half of America already earns their income that way today, but it does set the stage. If half of the labor force moves to a freelance or a contractor role, people are calling that the 1099 economy. Reports show that it's well within reach by the year 2026. And as many of you know, I was in the corporate world for a long time after I got out of high school, and then transitioned over to a 1099 income part-time, which eventually turned into my 1099 full-time and has been since 2014. And I never saw myself as being an entrepreneur, but since I have, this has really sparked my interest and has got me to dig into this statistic even more. So here's what I've learned. So what everyone called the Great Resignation post-COVID, when everyone was summoned back to work, that was largely driven by the disillusionment of going back to traditional work. People were not getting raises that they felt they should. They were going back to a toxic culture. There was no flexibility in their workspace. And for many people, it was just a workplace burnout. And the post-pandemic flexibility gave so many people a taste of working remotely, and it was a shift that many people refused to give up. Also, during that time, economic challenges had a very big hand in everything. We saw high inflation, the stagnant wages that pushed many Americans and people to seek a supplemental type income. And for a lot of people, that supplementary gig became their full-time independence. So that's when having that side hustle exploded, with half of Americans, and even a higher percentage of that number being younger generations, began running side gigs alongside their day job in an effort to build a business while that 9 to 5 financed it. And then also several platforms came about, Etsy, YouTube, TikTok. It made launching a business or a side hustle easier and cheaper than ever, because they don't cost you anything. Because if you own a business, you know that your customers are found wherever everyone's attention currently is. And at that point in time, everyone's attention was in social platforms that got people to buying things online and ordering. All that came into play. And the demographic shift of the boomers retiring and selling out their businesses. And millennials saw that as a buying opportunity, which fueled a generational shift that favored entrepreneurship that we had not seen in decades. So how does all this affect the broader economy? More startups mean innovation, always, new jobs, and potentially big future businesses. And we've seen small side gigs that's turned into big businesses. Now, that's a net positive for the economy. But everyone knows owning a business is not for everyone. Entrepreneurship comes with a very high failure rate, meaning half of new businesses fold in 5 years, which in turn creates volatility and income instability. But at the end of the day, our economy is shifting. There's tax rules, there's still inflation, all these tech platforms, the retired baby boomers moving on, and changes in workforce values. They're all pulling people into a 1099 income. Some are thriving and some are struggling. So if you've stuck with me on this, I want to know what you think. Is going independent for you about freedom and growth, or instability and stress? Maybe you've already made the leap or you've tried. I'd love to hear what your wins were and what your hurdles were. And why did you, or why would you choose entrepreneurship over a steady corporate job? So let me know in the comments. I would love to know your thoughts.